In this video, we're going to go through the idea of how your body is able to manipulate pressure gradients in order to allow you to breathe. The first thing that we need to look at is the idea of a pressure gradient. That is the idea that if you have two systems of air that are connected, that is, that there's no barrier that is dividing them, and one system of air is under higher pressure and the other is under lower pressure, then we'll see a movement of air from higher pressure towards lower pressure until the two systems are at equilibrium. So air will follow the pressure gradient. The only way to get around this is if you were to put an input of energy in, then you can force air to move from lower pressure towards higher pressure. And that's like what we see with air compressors, for instance. But what we naturally see occurring is air always moving from high pressure towards lower pressure. And this is what creates like wind patterns that we see in our everyday lives. The other thing we need to understand to fully understand how your lungs and your diaphragm are going to work together to allow you to breathe is the idea of Boyle's law. This is a gas law that was described before the ideal gas law, and it is going to show how pressure and volume are linked. So what we see with Boyle's law is that if you were to take a container of gas and keep that gas at the same temperature, if you were to shrink the volume of the container of gas, then that is going to force all of those air particles into a smaller volume, and that is going to cause the pressure of that gas to increase. Now, conversely, if you were to do the opposite, let's say that we increase the amount of volume of the container of gas, then we're going to have the same amount of gas in a larger volume, and that causes the pressure to decrease. So, lower volumes equals higher pressure or higher volumes equal lower pressure. So, by combining this idea of pressure gradients and also Boyle's law, we can help describe how your lungs are going to allow you to inhale and exhale. So let's move over here to these lungs. Now, I wish this animation showed the diaphragm and its action, but we'll just have to envision it for now. So let's say that you are getting ready to inhale. So we're about to breathe in. Sorry about that. What we would see is the diaphragm would contract and it would be pulling down, and that's going to increase the volume of your lungs. So let's see if I can get this to play. Okay, there you see the lungs expanding. The diaphragm would be pulling down and flattening and helping to expand the lungs. What that means is we'd be increasing the volume of the lungs. So remember, higher volume means lower pressure. So by increasing the volume inside of the lungs, we have now decreased the pressure inside of the lungs. This is going to set up a pressure gradient where now we have lower pressure inside of the lungs with higher pressure outside of your body. And that is going to cause air to flow in through either your nose or your mouth, depending on which opening you're breathing through. And that air is going to flow in and enter your lungs until the point that your lungs and the outside air are at equal pressures, until they reach equilibrium. At that point, you would stop breathing in and you wouldn't have any more air entering your lungs. Now, let's say it is time to exhale. We would see the diaphragm relax. It would return back to its normal dome shape. That would decrease the volume in the lungs, which would then increase the pressure inside of the lungs. And that would set up a new pressure gradient where you have higher pressure inside of the lungs, lower pressure outside of the lungs, and air is going to flow out of the lungs back into the atmosphere. So that is a little overview on how pressure gradients and Boyle's law allow you to ventilate air.